Hi, so I am here with Jerome Chang, a pioneer in co-working, and we are here in central LA at Blankspaces, one of two locations, a co-working space which actually has some great elements to it that we are going to show you in our walkthrough. So check that out on our website at outliermagazine.co. We will walk through this space. I'm going to pick Jerome's brain a little bit more. Since you are a pioneer, you've been here, you were the first co-working space in the area, is that right?
Right, the first one in SoCal.
Okay, so how long ago was that?
That was April 2008 when we opened doors. And I didn't know of any other co-working space in a probably 100, 200 mile radius.
So from what I understand, you are an architect.
Yes.
And really your need for a co-working space or your desire for a co-working space sprouted out of that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right, I was looking to open my own firm of one person and thought I would want to share with a few people. Was that for
cost or?
Yeah, it's for cost. Network, printers, the rent, and it was all going to be more expensive per person if I only had one. I also knew that I wanted to just be able to go to lunch, get coffee with a few people regularly. And as I was starting to freelance, I was camping out at Starbucks and any number of cafes at the library and realized there were so many people doing the same thing. I stumbled across an article from the SF Gate, I believe, about these bohemian workers. And at that point, this is about '06, the term co-working may have been monikered, but no one was really using it. No one knew about it. And so I embraced that idea of gathering a bunch of people and cranked out a spreadsheet and realized maybe I should have 20 people in here or 30 people in here or 50 people in here and just figure out a good level that can bring in convert my overhead into a revenue generator.
Interesting. So how long did it take you to get that process started? Tell me the steps.
It turned out to be pretty standard. I started my spreadsheet in November of '06. I finished my business plan in May of '07. I raised half my funding target in the first 3 weeks, and then I proceeded to, finish the rest of the fundraising in the next few months as I was looking for space. And looking for space took about 5 or 6 months, typical. Signed the lease in November of 2007, opened doors in April of '08. So it was pretty kind of 4 to 6 months for each major phase. And then 6 months later, then we had the crash of '08.
Yeah.
October, Lehman Brothers and everyone else closed doors. And so I was faced with trying to test how resilient this kind of business model is during that time. I was hit as well as anyone else. And by March of '09, we saw the beginning of the rebound back. And for the next several years, it was a great steady climb.
So your doors were open the whole time?
Right.
That's great. So who did you go to for funds in the beginning?
I went a traditional route. What a lot of people do in a seed round like this, you go through your friends and family. People willing to give you 5, 10, 20K, maybe 50K.
How much did it take for you? Do you mind sharing?
It was in the 6 digits.
Yeah?
Healthy 6 digits. It's
okay.
probably
we are in LA.
Probably 5 times more than most people spend on a co-working space.
Yeah.
But I think if you walk around, you'll see where the money was spent. Yeah. It's a much more built out space. We also appreciated the commercial grade quality of furniture that I bought from Steelcase, whereas most people would go to IKEA or CB2.
Sure.
And that's not that it's better or worse. It's just I wanted that level of finish, and that level of durability,
right,
and that level of design quality.
Sure.
As an architect, it's like imagine being a fashion designer and not appreciating kind of couture brands, but then buying all your stuff that's like a Gap, which is not bad, but you got to appreciate some of the stuff that you really studied.
Sure.
And architecture is the same.
It adds definitely your special touch to it. And there's definitely a custom feel to it for sure.
Yeah.
Which makes it a quality experience.
Well,
do you find that draws people?
Yeah, I mean that was the point. It's that you can have to go to an office every day and it becomes a drudgery, or you go to a place that you want to go to.
Sure.
And that's just the tipping point. It's just it's either one or the other. And this had to be a place where you're proud to go to, where you want to go to, or you're proud to show other people that you work out of here. If there was a more bootstrap basic version, then you have a different goal. My goal was to make it not necessarily impressive, but desirable.
Love it. So typically co-working spaces in your experience are pretty basic to begin with.
99% of them.
Yeah.
Because they start off because of different needs.
Mm-hmm.
They either don't have an architecture or construction background, so that's just not their focus.
Sure.
Others are so intent on opening it that they'll do it at all costs, which means it could be less than the budget that they need. Others are just because there are certain opportunities that landed on their lap. A space became available and they just grabbed it, regardless if they didn't really have the money to pay for enough chairs. I went the other route where I kind of planned it out, raised the target I needed, and bought and built stuff the way I wanted to do it.
Would you mind sharing with me how long it took you to become cash positive?
Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's quick. I mean,
I guess.
Any tips on the business plan? Because you got funding. You put a substantial amount, I'm sure, into the design and the remodel.
Yeah, well, this business is a subscription-based business. So once someone signs up, they tend to stick around month to month. So it has a cumulative effect. So if you were to sell, let's say, Barbie dolls off the shelf, every month you have to sell, the same amount.
Right.
But if that person came back and bought, first month bought 1 and next month bought 2 and 3, that incremental effect helps very quickly. And then second, I was the first co-working space, so I think there was no competition is one way to put it, and then it was just I think I must have hit a need early on. Sure. But we did the same in all our locations to get cost per positive in about 5 or 6 months.
That's excellent.
Keep in mind though, there's an industry called executive suites. Companies like Regis, where it's almost all offices, at least historically, and they're cash flow positive like by month 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah, but they have a lot of pre-sales. They have certain deal structures that allow them to get going quicker.
Okay.
But they also have 2,000 locations around the world, so they've kind of figured out their process.
Right. Yeah. So what have you found that works for retention to keep those people here coming back month after month? You don't see a lot of churn?
Oh, yeah, of course. We have churn. I don't actually have a number on that, but the nature of the business has it so that people might only want to be here 1 or 3 months.
Yeah, sure.
Most people sign 6 and 12-month contracts here.
For a price break?
For a price break.
Okay.
And because they're committed to need a place for that amount of time. Either that's the amount of funding they got, or that's the amount of time someone told them that they have to fund the project, any number of reasons.
Okay. Do you do events?
Right. So the rest of it's, kind of driven by the culture. So we have events here that some we program, others are brought in from out of house, event producers or just people in general who need things. That helps kind of contribute to the ecosystem. So instead of, a typical situation is that you work for someone, you know about a networking event at one place, you know about another networking at another place, and you go to those things throughout the month. Well, what happens if you're in an office space where all the network events come here? Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting up and going down the hall. Yeah. So we don't have all the events, but we have enough where you could just hang out and you wouldn't have to get up, you wouldn't have to commute much. Right.
So what do you find are some of the common hurdles that or issues that your coworkers here deal with that you see time after time? I imagine that you take a mentorship role and you see these startups go through similar.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from all these businesses. One is just I'm like, you make money doing what?
Share with us. We'd love to know some of these things.
A lot of these are related to internet marketing. It's really? They don't actually create the ad. They don't actually sell the ad. They're a broker for the broker in between and make a percentage. And I get lost. But there's entire studios and big agencies that do that. And of course, there's a new platform that disrupts it, and then the middleman's out. There's a new middleman, and any number of those things. Whenever there's something that needs to go from point A to point B, and requires some logistics, someone's making a skim or a percentage off anything, and it's just amazing. It could be moving cars, it could be distributing toys from one country to the next. It's just.
So, what percentage of tech do you have here?
Maybe about 25%.
Oh, really?
But saying if you're tech is really difficult to gauge right now. if you talk to, let's put Hollywood since we're here in LA.
Yeah.
If you talk to the typical production agency, they all say they're tech because they do multimedia. They're on websites. They're on specific platforms. They're going into franchising the brand name of that character for something else. So it's never just creating a show. It's this whole like stack of revenue lines. So they'll say they're a type of tech firm because they're in the media business.
Interesting.
So I tried to track that, but eventually, like every company, there were too many multiple categories.
Yeah.
And it was hard to do.
Because as entrepreneurs, we can't just be in one category, right? We have to be doing multiple things.
I mean, if you're a 3D printer, right? Is that tech? It's just a new version of producing a thing. Right?
We need to come up with a term.
So just because you don't have a conveyor belt doesn't mean that you're not tech, right?
Sure.
And are those funded by VCs? Yes. Okay, so that's one element. Is it fast growth? Yes. Is it disruptive? Yes. Does it use technology? Yes. But what doesn't use technology?
Yeah, sure. So do you have long time inhabitants here that just stay co-working just because their business is working? They don't need to get bigger. They're doing well.
Yeah, we have a pair of brothers who are writers. I think you might meet them later.
Okay.
But their recent claim to fame is that the movie National Treasure Part 4.
Sure.
They're the lead writers on that.
Oh, really?
I think actually the only writers. So they've done some big stuff. They've been here for 3.5 years, which is almost the entire life. We had one group move out last summer. They were here for 5 years.
Wow.
So almost the entire time it was open. And they were a group of 6.
Okay.
And there's the individuals who are here for 2, 3, or 4 years. It just depends. People like to be small.
Yeah. So do you have like a mentorship program where you can take some of these startups under your wing if they need help and match them up with someone that can help them out?
Yeah, that's one ideal place I want to be.
Yeah.
But you have to have a whole bank of mentors, not only who are capable but are willing.
Yeah, sure.
Then you have to have a program set up, a curriculum set up where people want to be reviewed and helped. Some people don't want to be helped. And then you have a whole layer of, should you incubate them? Do you actually put money into them and get a stake? I don't know. Yeah. Well, so for right now, we just do what we know best, which is provide a entrepreneur community and all the infrastructure that an entrepreneur would normally need. All the other stuff is just, we'll see what happens.
So Blankspaces, what's your angle? What's your mission? What are your values as a brand?
We have a short description. I'll say it and see if it kind of communicates the message. Yeah. It's a co-working community of entrepreneurs and freelancers who share office space in order to collaborate. We have workspaces by the hour, day, and month. And then our tagline is work for yourself, not by yourself. So I think it's a level of aspiration. It's a level of desirability. And I think you would never think it's a bootstrap basic version of co-working. Again, not that that's bad, it's just that that's what we do. And it doesn't say we're necessarily tech or only for UX designers. We actually have a co-working space outside of downtown called Drop Labs. And it started out and it's primarily focused on people who code on the Drupal platform.
Oh, really?
A
co-working space just for
Drupal platform.
Drupal coders.
Yeah, very specific. We're just not like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe in every single business needs an accountant. Every single business needs some level of legal or insurance. So then why not have legal and insurance in the co-working space? At one point you may want to move out and get your own space. So why shouldn't there be more brokers in here? Yeah. You might need a financier, someone related to a bank or alternative financing. They should be here, right? Yeah. So they shouldn't just sit outside a different office and then come in as guests. They should be part of the community. Sure. Because that's where the relationships really get built.
So I'd love to know, just you've been open 6 years. You're one of the first. What are some of the struggles? I mean, have you just had some real nail-biting moments, or some times when you're crying in your closet? I mean,
yeah, it's post-recession. Well, not post-recession. The aftermath of October '08. Yeah. I think. It's one of those situations where it's like musical chairs and someone just turned off the music. It wasn't that there wasn't enough chairs and there wasn't any music, it just wasn't playing at the same time. And we're all trying to figure out, like, when is the music going to start again? Yeah. Because I think everyone agreed that at that moment, it wasn't about that the economy was so bad. It's that someone just stopped the flow of activity, right? As long as there was activity, you can make transactions, you can make percentages off this or that. But when the music stopped, it was really, really difficult. And it wasn't until about March of '09 where the music started to play again. And you can see it in the S&P index, any amount of stock market indices, and it had a dip right in March, and right after March, it just started to steadily climb.
So how did you make it through that? I mean, I imagine that took a lot out of.
Yeah, I had to dig deep, no doubt about it. Put some personal efforts in there for sure, and but you have to stick to your guns. If you believe your model can work. One of the things you learn about running a business, and this is not just unique to Coworking, I'm sure this is for every business, you learn what really needs to be done. You learn who really needs to be paid immediately and who can be paid later. Who's willing to be paid later if you just call them and say, look, I want to be a committed customer of yours, but I'm having difficulty. Can you help me out? And we restructure something. And you just go down the line and ask everyone.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about the organizations that you have helped to put together for nationally for co-working spaces that want to network together. Right,
there are two. The oldest one is about 2.5, 3 years old. It's called Lexi. It stands for League of Extraordinary Coworking. And what it was just a few of us that got together and said, hey, we all have very similar goals. And we know that there's a need for some kind of national network or a national association. Let's form together, create some initiatives, and try to work together. We all represented different geographies, so that helped, so there was no encroaching on territories. And we were on calls every week to get this thing off the ground. Now we represent about 20 brands in about 45 locations. And we just added some international locations. The hub in Australia, we added Remix in Paris, and we're bringing on Foundry in Toronto, and hopefully one in Argentina. So
international.
What's common to all of that is we all have a willingness to make the public aware of coworking. We have a willingness to help each other out, and it's really a best practices group. We talk about things as minutiae as what kind of printer do you use, how does that address the need for a 20-person office or a 50-person office, to more policy level stuff like how do you hire and fire or retain employees, and what kind of programming do you do in your space that works. And we sit around the table for a weekend and figure that out.
What's the barrier of entry for that organization?
There is a vetting process, and there's an annual fee. It's $1,000 per brand, so it could be 5 locations or 10 locations. But at the end of the day, really what it is that we just want to make sure it's a match. You write down in the application that we can all see of what you've been trying to do and what your goals are. And then hopefully will have met you at some point, or a few of us will have met you, to see if there's a personality match, because we want to make sure that you want to be on these calls, you want to meet up for the weekend and hang out, so that we can get the best of it. There's obviously a bunch of spaces out there that fit the physical, financial, logistical requirements, but maybe there's just not a personality match. Well, we haven't yet met them. And we're a new group, so we're always looking for people to see if it's a match.
Cool. Now, what's the other organization that's just for anyone who works together, paid, not paid?
Right. It's a group called CoShare, and it's to address every single other issue or goal that's out there. Whether you're 2 people who share an office, or you're 1,000 people, you're an incubator, you're an accelerator, you're subsidized by the local government, whatever it is, you have a desire to share space in order to share ideas. And so that one is a way to aggregate resources so we can work on big national or international initiatives, such as a central repository for information about coworking. What are the stats? What are the trends? How do you form a co-working space? What are some sample business plans? There's a place on the website, on the internet, it's a co-working wiki, and it is a repository for that. But if you've ever tried to look for information there, it's like a bad yard sale. It's there. It's there somewhere, but it takes too much effort to dig into it. Whether it's current or outdated is unknown. So, and someone needs to be paid, or resources need to be allocated in order to manage. It's basically an overgrown library.
So I'd love to know, do you have a key takeaway, one for those who are running co-working spaces, and then also those who are paying to go work out of co-working spaces? Can you give us a a tip of some kind, we want to mine your brain because you're kind of an expert in this area. So,
well, co-working is a new business model. There are ways to make money off of it, but I would say the very high bulk of the people are barely breaking even, and it's just a new business model. Not entirely new because there's a executive suites world that has we kind of benchmark against, but we like to think that there's quite a number of things we're doing differently. So it's like a bar that serves beer only versus a bar that serves everything else. There's a certain niche you're trying to go after, and so there's different revenue generators, right? But there's definitely a way to make money, and there's a reason why some of us are in it to grow and expand. Now, for the clients, the members who join, you just have to have a willingness to share your space. You have the willingness to share your time or share your sphere. Like you have to be willing to talk to other people, because if you do, you'll get a lot out of it. But if you like to kind of hole up in a cave, you like to work in a very isolated environment, it may not be for you. And Cowork is not trying to address everyone, but we're trying to tell you that even if you work in a cave, you'll want to get out of the cave at some point. And maybe it's just once a week, maybe it's once a month. That's totally fine. There's plans for that, these part-time and virtual kind of plans.
It's amazing. Back home at Outlier Labs, we see a lot of work or a lot of business happen right there within the co-working space.
Right, so people hire each other.
Right.
So imagine getting a job or a project from the person 5 feet away from you.
Yeah, sure.
It happens. I mean, we can tell you an infinite number of stories on that.
Well, we're excited to walk through your space here in just a minute. If you would tell us how to contact you via Twitter, website.
Sure. Our website's blankspaces.com. Our Twitter handle is just Blankspaces. And my email is jerome@blankspaces.com.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate you being open to that. And we can't wait to check out your space. Just go to outliermagazine.co and you can check it out.